Suzuki community. It's Myron at Zuk's Off-Road, and today we're going to tackle one of the hardest jobs to do on a Suzuki Samurai, and that's replace the rear wheel bearings. If you're not aware of this, the rear wheel bearings have to be cut off, and so that's what I'm going to be doing today, show you how to do it safely and effectively. I'm also going to show you another method of how to do the SJ410 quick axle change. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to cut off this bearing. Now what I'm going to do is just let you know we're going to need a ball peen hammer, we're going to need a wide chisel that's sharpened, we're going to need a cut-off wheel, we're going to need safety glasses, and we're going to need some heavy gloves. I almost lost a thumb once to these cut-off wheels, so we're going to be very careful. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the top of the bearing, then I'm going to rotate it 180, and then I'm going to cut it again. I'll knock it off. Now for you fellas that are not into guns, then what you're going to do is save these balls, because if you have to have a slingshot to fight the tyrants, these balls in here make great slingshot ammo. So here we go. We're going to cut off the bearing first. Rotate it about 180. Cut through the bearing. Take your chisel, take your hammer. Now you have more room to get to the retainer. The retainer is going to be the next thing that we cut. Do not cut down to the axle. Make sure you leave some meat on the retainer. But I also want to get these balls out of the way first. Now we're going for the retainer. Take the chisel, put it in the slot. Now the inner race. Alright, we'll talk about the bearings in the next part of this video. Right now what we're going to do is show you the SJ410, because I'm going to also give you both examples of how to put bearings on correctly. So let's go over and do that now. Okay, we cut off the bearings when we want to use the backing plates without cutting a big hole in the backing plates. The backing plates are unique. You've got your driver and your passenger. So obviously your driver is your long axle, and we just did the short axle. There's many ways to get this big hole in here. The very, very best way that I have found in my shop is I just either plasma cut or torch, or I could take this right here and I could make the hole big enough for the bearing to go through. But I'm going to take this one off right now by torching it. going to be a lot easier to cut this bearing off. I could even press this off with the clamshell. Now, I am going to have to sand the slag off if I use, but you see I got a nice round circle because I use the bearing as a guide. So this is, now we're going to go in a little quiet environment and show you how everything gets set up for using the SJ410 backing plates and pressing on the bearings correctly. So we're going to go inside now. Okay, picking this up where we left off, we're going two different ways of putting these bearings on. Now the quick release way is to take a genuine SJ410 backing plate, take it out of the bag. It's got 4 tabs on it, and those tabs are going to face the rubber. Keep that in mind. The 4 tabs are going to face the rubber. Now, on the factory original bearings back in the 80s, there was this spacer that you will find on the shaft when you cut the bearing off. You're going to get rid of this spacer. We're not going to use that. The reason why is the new coil bearings, and of course we really like the Japanese genuine stuff, so there you go. You got a genuine Suzuki retainer, you've got a real notched coil bearing, and it's wrapped in a bag that doesn't say coil on it. But if you look at the bearing sideways, you're going to see an offset on it. The offset replaces this spacer. So this is the first thing you're going to press on if you're doing the SJ410. This is for putting it back through the backing plate and then using the same 4 bolts to hold the backing plate, because this will go through the backing plate but this won't. And then you put the same 4 bolts in, you put the nuts on the axle. What I do is bend these tabs over on the head of the bolt. First you press on the bearing, and then you press on the retainer. Now the retainer is tighter than the bearing because it's holding the wheel in the axle. And so I always put some PB Blaster, some WD-40, something like that, and then go ahead and press that on after the bearing is seated. The very best way to press these on is to get your blocks in the press right here. And of course you've got to put the SJ410 plate on if you're doing that. And then I press this bearing on, and then I press the retainer. Now let's get that backing plate and show you how to do this without the SJ410. Okay, figure I may as well show you this too. So I said it can go through, and now you can see what I mean. It goes, the bearing goes right through, but the plate won't. Now, it's very important that you put this stuff on the right way. So remember, the brake shoes are going to be facing the rubber. I had that on backwards. And of course, the back is obvious because you've got your emergency brake lever here. If you were torching or plasma cutting this, you would want to remove all of the springs, the shoes, all of the parts, so that you don't cut anything with the torch. If I was going to do the backing plate, I wouldn't do the SJ410. I would go ahead and put the axle on the correct way. This is the back, this is the tire side. So I would put this on first, because this is the short side. And you see it clears out. And then I would put the bearing with the spacer down, press that down. And the best way to press that is to put it in the press with plates here, press down on the axle. That's the best way to do it. The worst way to do it is to put a pipe on here and try to bang it down. That is, you really need a press for this to do it correctly. After you have the bearing on, you lubricate the retainer, put the retainer on. Now this axle is not a quick change. I really like these, I do these a lot, but it depends on the customer if they want to spend a little bit more money. These have been running less than $15 a plate. They used to cost a lot less than that, but everything coming from Japan now, happy to get it. So again, this is how you do the rear wheel bearings. I want you all to be safe. Oh, how do you tell if you have a bad wheel bearing? It's real simple. it only wiggles by 1/8 of an inch if it's good. If it wiggles over 1/8 of an inch, it really needs to be replaced right away. So anyways, be safe, go wheeling, have fun. There's a link for a giveaway in this video. Bye-bye, community. Thank you.